We heard about FinOps, sort of all the way up there on costing. We heard about the Confidential Computing Consortium. There's another actual effort that I want to flag to you, and I think this is going to be quite relevant for this industry. Some of you might know, with my second hat, I run Linux Foundation in Europe. My thick Italian accent, I guess that's my qualification. And over the last 3 years, we focused very much on regulation. The EU came down with a lot of regulation, specifically the Cyber Resilience Act, the AI Act, that really impact software and therefore impact open source. It's something that if you don't know about, you should probably know, and something that I've collaborated also quite closely with Mike in Europe. One of the projects that you hear about today, as OpenSSF is one of our sponsors as well, is the open source security project baseline. Open source project security baseline. I'm very excited about this effort because it really was a cross-collaboration across OpenSSF, our open source security foundation, FINOS, our head of the TOC, collaborated, contributed on it, and several folks here from the institutions, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. This is really an effort to create a common baseline as to how you assess and measure security of open source projects. And for you guys, and this is a theme that we're going to develop quite a bit later in the keynote, managing tech risk and managing in a unified way all your software supply chain is a very important aspect. And I know it can be daunting when you think about the myriad of open source packages that you depend on. So not only the baseline provides this sort of unified way of looking at the posture of open source projects, but it also maps to global regulations. And so as global entities, as we have many global institutions here, having to comply from a cybersecurity standpoint to, again, standards like NIST or the EU Cyber Resilience Act, or several other of those standards that you see down there, having a unified interface as to how you measure and manage the risk of your supply chain is really important. So make sure you check out the session. And if any of you is coming to Europe, I'm flying next week. We have 3 major events, including OpenSSF on Thursday next week is hosting a summit in Brussels with a whole dedicated Cyber Resiliency Act track. If you have your colleagues in Europe, please send them over. Linux Foundation Europe is hosting 2 days in Ghent, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. This is something relevant, which I think, again, banks, I've heard a lot of talk about DORA. I've heard much less talk about CRA as to how you operate in Europe. Now, let's get back to us, as in FINOS. You've heard yesterday, I tried to, for those of you who were here, create sort of this analogy as you look at our portfolio of projects. Yesterday, we focused very much on some of the value projects, standards like FDC3, the CDM, FluxNova, our newly launched project. Today, I want to really focus on the growth projects. We have so much, we had so much influx of new projects this year. And one that I'm particularly excited about is OpenGRIS. OpenGRIS was launched, we announced it in London in July. It was contributed by Citi. It's a combination of a standard that we're starting to build and actually reference implementations that are already running in production. And if you think about it, this project is around enabling really availability and accessibility of the most appropriate compute resources for your workload and maximize the utilization. If you think about it, grids are used between sort of the hours of sort of 5 to 11 p.m. and they're mostly unused throughout the rest of the day. These grids can cost more than, say, $50 million a year, and sort of the low utilization of these grids has actually also a negative environmental impact. It has a complex learning curve. Think about quant developers. And so compute resources need commoditization. That today is sort of still very much reserved to experts. And so not easily accessible to, again, those staff that are busy and have a high learning curve. The ecosystem is composed of multiple hardware providers, such as all the CSPs, as well as multiple software providers. And so offering a universal scheduler will ease compute resource usages while reducing costs. And so that's why we're really excited to have not only, again, something that we want to try to standardize in Open Grids, but already reference implementations that you can try today.